Hey guys, I am the Comics Kid 2099 and I wanted to talk to you about a graphic novel that I read. This is a really short graphic novel. It was a 4-issue miniseries called Drax, Earthfall. And basically, this story starts with a prison ship in outer space crashing on planet Earth, and we specifically follow 5 aliens who land on Earth, and basically all of them, they just want to get off planet Earth. We have Lunatic, with a K at the end. He is a character who was created by Keith Giffen in the 1990s, I believe. Then we have Drax, who is, I guess, our main character. We have Paybok, the Super Skrull, and then we have 2 characters called Blood Brothers. And ordinarily, when you start a story off with aliens landing on Earth, you would expect them to have some evil plan in mind that involves subjugating the entire human race. And we don't have that here. Paybok, he flat out says, I am not interested in conquering your planet, I just want to get home. And I really like that even though Paybok and Lunatic are our air quotes bad guys, their motivations still make sense. And in a way, I sympathize more with them than I do with our air quotes POV character. That leads me right into my biggest complaint about this series. The main character besides Drax is this little girl who lives in this small town in Alaska where the aliens have landed. And she is a jerk to every single character in this book. She's got one friend and she's a jerk to him all the time. And I get that in real life not everyone is likable, and most of the time when you have comic book stories like this, they're trying to be air quotes realistic, and so they want to have characters who resemble real life people. So sometimes you're going to have characters who are not likable because in the real world there are people who are not likable. I get that. The problem is, I don't want to read stories about unlikable characters, and this girl is extremely unlikable. Now, that is not to say that every character that I read about has to be about bunnies and rainbows and candy corn or whatever. There can be darkness in my characters. There are characters that I like that are not nice people, but they still have more going on under the surface than this girl. This girl, all that I know about her is that she's a jerk to everyone. And we find out that her mom is a drunk and doesn't really like her very much, and then conveniently her parents both die when the aliens are trying to get off planet Earth. And then she goes with Drax out into outer space, and as far as I know, we never see her again, and good riddance. I don't mind characters who are jerks to people, but I would like to see a little bit of complexity, a little bit of depth to their characters, and I don't see that with this girl. That is really my biggest issue, is that this girl is annoying, and we spend an inordinate amount of time with her in this book. All of the other characters, Drax, I find okay, he's more interesting than the girl, but the problem with him is that for over half of the story he's a drooling idiot and he can barely even say his own name, and we find out that the more he gets beat up, the smarter he gets, and eventually that kind of just stops being true. Eventually he just is smart without being beat up. I don't entirely understand it. Part of that could be that I don't know a whole lot about Drax as a character, and really at the end of the day, after reading this book, I still don't know a whole lot about Drax. I don't come away from this feeling like I'm an expert on who this character is. I know a little bit about him, but really I knew most of these things before I read this book. I knew that he was the father of Moondragon. I knew that he didn't like Thanos. That's really all that you get from this book, and that's really all that I knew before reading this book. So if you want to come into this feeling like you know a whole lot about the air quotes main character, you're not going to get that. And I was okay with that because I really enjoyed the story that we got anyway. In fact, I liked the villains of the story much more than I liked the little girl or Drax. I thought Paybok was extremely interesting. He's kind of a nice guy, even though he is overseeing the slaughter of some of these humans in this town. He's fairly reasonable about it, I felt, and that may make me sound like a psychopath, but I think he's much more interesting than either of our air quotes good guys. I also really liked Lunatic quite a bit. He doesn't get as much to do as Paybok, and it is a little weird at the beginning of the story. They're kind of playing him as a space redneck, sort of. And then halfway into the story, suddenly he's much smarter. He's acting much more intelligent, like he's in league with Paybok as far as their mental status goes. And then you've got the two blood brothers. Suddenly they're the ones who are acting stupid. And I'm okay with that. We needed characters to fulfill different roles, so the two blood brothers, they're kind of the dumb lackeys, and then Paybok and Lunatic, they're sort of the ones calling the shots, if you will. And honestly, I was much more invested in these guys than I was the two heroes. I know I've said that already, but I feel like their dialogue feels real, even though you've got characters here talking about space prisons and drinking radioactive gasoline or whatever. They still feel more real to me than the little girl or Drax, and that's maybe saying something about me, like I said earlier, or maybe it's just that Keith Giffen had more fun with these guys. I don't know. I think I would not mind having an ongoing series featuring some of the bad guys in this story. So that's about all I have to say. This is not going to be a very long review. Even though I had a few complaints about the story, this is really an enjoyable story. I would recommend it if you can find it somewhere. I know that right now Marvel's cosmic stuff is pretty huge and has been for about 6 or 7 years now. I think this predates all of that, I believe. I know that Keith Giffen kind of had a hand in restarting some of the cosmic stuff back during Annihilation and all of that. I think this comes before that. But yes, I would definitely recommend, if you see Drax Earthfall, go ahead and pick it up. And that's about all I have to say here, guys. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow with a different kind of video. Catch you later.